Imagine a boy growing up within the mighty walls of Babylon, surrounded by warriors, priests, and architects who shaped the greatest empire on earth. From an early age, he heard stories of kings who ruled with an iron fist, empires that fell and cities wiped out of history. But he didn't want to be just another king. He wanted to be the greatest of them all. That boy was Nebuchadnezzar. His father, Nabopolassar, had freed Babylon from Assyrian rule and built a powerful empire. But for the young prince, that was only the beginning. While other children played, he was learning war tactics. While nobles indulged in banquets, he studied political alliances. His destiny wasn't merely to lead, it was to become a legend. Then the day came. His father died and the crown was placed upon his head. But a king only proves his worth on the battlefield. The world was watching him, waiting to see if the young ruler would fade into oblivion or carve his name into eternity. Fate was about to test his greatness. After consolidating his power and turning Babylon into a military powerhouse, Nebuchadnezzar turned his attention to a small but spiritually influential nation, Judah. Jerusalem was a thorn in his dominion. Small but stubborn, the city dared to defy the Babylonian Empire, trusting its God to protect it. But Nebuchadnezzar was not a patient man. When Judah rebelled against Babylonian rule, he responded with fury. His army besieged Jerusalem, cut off supplies, and waited. Hunger overcame the city, resistance weakened, and finally, the gates fell. King Jehoiakim was captured, and the sacred Temple of Solomon, the pride of Israel, was plundered. All the gold objects and the palace treasures were taken to Babylon. The destruction of Jerusalem was more than a military victory. It was a demonstration of power. Nebuchadnezzar wanted the world to know that no one could defy Babylon and go unpunished. But he did not realize that among the prisoners taken to his court was a man who would change his story forever, Daniel. Time passed and Nebuchadnezzar continued to rule with absolute power. Babylon was the most magnificent city on earth, its walls impregnable, its temples dazzling, and its hanging gardens one of the greatest wonders of the world. To the king, all of it proved his own greatness. He believed his empire was eternal, that his glory would never be shaken. But God had sent him a warning, and he chose to ignore it. One night, as he walked on the palace terraces, admiring the radiant city under the moon, he proudly said, "Is this not the great Babylon, that I have built by my power for the glory of my name?" At that very moment, a voice echoed from heaven, "O King Nebuchadnezzar, your authority has been taken from you. You will live among the animals and eat grass like oxen, until you acknowledge that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of men." And so it happened. The greatest king on earth went mad. His spirit was seized by confusion. His mind was lost. He left his throne, wandered the fields, and lived like a wild beast. His hair grew like eagle's feathers, and his nails like bird's claws. For 7 years he crawled on the ground, humiliated before all. The man who once commanded armies could no longer command his own mind. In the early days, perhaps he tried to fight his condition, trying to make sense of what had happened. But over time, his consciousness faded. He was no longer a king, just a shadow of what he once was. But then something happened. One day, after 7 long years of madness, he lifted his eyes to the heavens. At that moment, something changed inside him. His mind returned, his sanity was restored, and he finally understood what he had ignored all his life. It was not he who ruled the earth, but God, the King of Kings. I raised my eyes toward heaven, and my reason returned to me. I praised, exalted, and glorified the Most High God, whose dominion is eternal, and whose kingdom endures from generation to generation. Daniel 4:34. Nebuchadnezzar returned to his throne, but now he was a transformed man. His pride was broken, his arrogance destroyed, and he acknowledged that all glory and power belonged to God, not to men. The story of Nebuchadnezzar is not merely a record of the past, it's a warning for us all. The most powerful king in the world learned the hard way that no human glory lasts forever. His pride led to his fall. His arrogance turned him into an animal, and only when he recognized God's sovereignty was he restored. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Matthew 23:12. And now I ask you, are we making the same mistake? Are we trusting in our own power more than in God? If this story touched you, tell me in the comments. Which part made you reflect the most? Do you believe we still commit the same mistakes as Nebuchadnezzar nowadays? Let's talk about it. And of course, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more content like this. See you in the next video.